Hey Lions, so good to see you again. We are going to pick up on our novel Wonder. We'll continue reading. Before we start reading though, I want us to finish answering our guiding question, and that is, what theme is evident in Wonder, and what do you believe was the author's purpose for writing this novel? Now, we've already answered the first part. What do we think, what theme is evident? So I'm going to go ahead, get rid of that highlighting because we're finished with that part. And then let's look at the second part. Remember, the first thing when answering a question is to unlock the prompt, or to really think about, what am I being asked? So we already took care of the first part. Let's read the second part. And what do you believe was the author's purpose for writing this novel? Now, what we're going to do to help us is, you can see behind me over my shoulder is our anchor charts for what we think the author's purpose is and what we think common themes are in novels. But what I've done, because I know it's kind of hard for you to see over my shoulder, is I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that picture. And then I have down below here, I made a copy of this poster so that we can look at it while we're answering the question. There we go. That's our page of evidence. And the first thing I want to do, looks like they're overlapping here. There we go. Here's our author's purpose poster. We're going to look at this one first. So remember, we talked about that we thought that the author's purpose for writing this novel was to instruct or teach us a lesson. Okay, so let's go back up to our prompt. And we're going to highlight, what do we believe was the author's purpose for writing this novel? This is part 2 of the question. We answered part 1 over the last couple of days, so now we can start answering this. And when we look at our anchor chart, we know there are several purposes that authors write literature, but we do feel like, and we've gathered evidence that we feel like he's trying to teach, or she's trying to teach us a lesson. So I'm going to say, I believe, let's make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. Let's go back to 14. And we're going to say, I believe the author wrote this novel to instruct. We're going to go right from our anchor chart, which is right here. We think the author wrote the novel to instruct or to teach us a lesson. And now we can get rid of the anchor chart picture. It's still hanging up behind me, but we no longer need that. Now we need to look at our evidence. Remember, when we are answering a question, it's almost like we become little attorneys, and we always have to have proof. We have to explain why we believe something. So here's our proof, and the proof comes right from our reading journal where we've been collecting the evidence. So I'm going to move our proof chart up so we can refer to it as we type. Here we go. Let's see if it'll get on this page. Here we go. Okay, so now we need to tell what our proof is. Now remember, here's what we think the lesson is. We think that it's for us to learn to treat each other's hearts carefully and to make sure nobody ever feels alone or unworthy. So I think that's the first thing we should add. I believe the author wrote this novel to instruct us or to teach us a lesson. She wants us to learn to treat each other's hearts carefully and to make sure nobody ever feels alone or unworthy. And remember, we made that decision that that might be the message that the author's trying to teach us when we had that kind of aha moment as we read aloud. And remember, I stopped and said, hey guys, please help make sure nobody ever feels this way at our school. And it's when you have those aha moments and you want to do something about it and you want to change and, you want it to be something that other people learn from, then you know for sure that the author has taught you a lesson. Okay, so we've taken care of this sticky note. So remember, we're so thankful we put the page numbers on here because then we know the order in which to sequence our ideas. Okay, so and we paraphrased each sticky note. So these are in our own words. So we are free to copy exactly what's on the sticky notes because it wasn't copied directly from the text. We summarized in our own words what had happened on those pages. So here we have kids were staring at Augie in the cafeteria and he felt alone. So kids were staring at Augie in the cafeteria and he felt alone. Okay. Now, let me move my paper down. Okay, so the second sticky note was where Tristan rushed to wash his hands after Augie accidentally touched him, and Augie felt sad because of it. Okay, so let's add that. And let's tell where they were. Remember, they were in science class. So we always have to answer as if whoever's reading our response didn't read the story. So you want to fill in those details when they might wonder, where this happened at. So we're going to say Tristan rushed, we'll say during science. That way we set up for whoever reads this to know where they were. During science class, Tristan rushed to wash his hands after Augie accidentally touched him. And Augie was really sad. Okay, next page, or next sticky note. Augie said he wished people could wear masks so that we aren't judged by our appearances. So we'll say at one point, August, and I'm saying August because we've said Augie every time. And remember, we talked about last time you try not to repeat the same thing over and over again. So I'll say at one point, August said he wished people could wear masks all the time so we are not judged by our appearances. Okay. All right. Now, the next thing that happened was on these 3 pages. Oh, yeah, that was when Augie overheard Jack talking about him. So let's add that. Augie overheard Jack talking about him, and it made Augie feel, and it made him literally and figuratively sick, we wrote. So it made Augie feel sick, both literally and figuratively. So, and what we mean by literally and figuratively is he really did feel sick. He felt like he would be sick to his stomach. And actually, when we heard from Via's point of view, he did get sick when he got home. But then also figuratively means he just felt so sad about it. Okay, so our last sticky note, we've got to move this down a little bit so we can see it better. Or I guess I need to move it up so we can see it better. And the last one was about Via. That was the last piece of evidence we had collected. And she had felt left out because her best friends were excluded her over the summer. So it wasn't just Augie that that's heart wasn't treated carefully. It was also Via's as well. So we got to see the impact on both of them. So let's say, let's say Via felt left out because her best friends, Miranda and Ella, excluded her over the summer, and they were acting different towards her. Via, and remember, I'm just typing exactly what's on my sticky note, nothing new here. Via felt as if she was going to cry. Okay. So, and remember just a second ago, I said out loud to you, so it wasn't just Augie, it was also Via. So I think I need to put this, if I felt like I needed to say it out loud, then I think I need to capture that in written form as well. So I'll say, in this novel, we saw two different characters that were treated unkindly. And it taught us that it is important, or let's go back to what we had said. So our sticky note said that we need to treat each other's hearts carefully to make sure nobody ever feels alone or unworthy. So let's go back to that. So in this novel, we saw two different characters that were treated unkindly, and it taught us that people feel unworthy and alone when this happens. We don't ever want anyone at our school, and I'm going to say or anywhere else, to feel this way. Okay. All right, folks. So there we have it. We have answered the second part of our question. What do we believe was the author's purpose for writing this novel? And we proved it. We have our text evidence, which was the examples we were recording as we read the story. So do you see how much easier it is when you jot notes as you read to be able to construct an answer to a question you might be asked about your story? If I would have waited till I was finished reading the book to think back, what were some examples of what happened? I may not remember all of the examples, or I may not remember all of the details about each example. So that's why it's important that you're an active reader and you take notes while you're reading. Okay, so let's get back to reading our novel now. Tomorrow, just like we did with the first part of the question, tomorrow we will go back and we will reread what we wrote. This is just a draft, just to clean it up and make sure there's nothing we want to change. Okay, now let's get back to my favorite part, reading the novel. All right, so we left off, remember we're hearing from Summer's point of view. It's now first person narrative from her point of view of what's happening in the story. All right, so the title is called November. So obviously, the whole Halloween ordeal had already happened. The next day at school, I told Savannah I had eaten some really bad Halloween candy and gotten sick, which is why I went home early from her party. And she believed me. There was actually a stomach bug going around, so it was a good lie. So remember, people were trying to convince Summer not to be friends with Augie, and she was so upset by it that she left the party. Good for her to stand up for what's right. I also told her that I had a crush on someone else that wasn't Julian, so she would leave me alone about that and hopefully spread the word to Julian that I wasn't interested. She, of course, wanted to know who it was, and I told her it was a secret. August was absent the day after Halloween, and when he came back, I could tell something was up with him. He was acting so weird at lunch. He barely said a word, and he kept looking down at his food when I talked to him, like he wouldn't look me in the eye. Finally, I was like, Augie, is everything okay? Are you mad at me or something? No, he said. Sorry you weren't feeling well on Halloween. I kept looking for Boba Fett in the hallways. Yeah, I was sick. Did you have that stomach bug? Yeah, I guess. He opened a book and started to read, which was kind of rude. I'm so excited about the Egyptian Museum project, I said. Aren't you? He shook his head, his mouth full of food. Hey, guys, I just want to point out um, so we know because we heard from Augie's point of view in the first section of why he's acting weird. And it's because remember he overheard Jack Will talking about him because he came and dresses up as Scream and Jack didn't know it was him. So Summer has nobody has no idea that this has happened except for Via because he confided in Via. So this is a good lesson to us that never make assumptions. Sometimes if someone's acting weird, we might think they're mad at us, um, and but then really they're upset about something completely different. So it's important you never make assumptions. Let's see what happens. I hope Summer tries to get to the bottom of it and says, "Hey, Augie, what's going on?" Because we certainly don't want her then to think Augie's trying to be rude to her. Okay, so let's go ahead. So he shook his head, his mouth full of food. I actually looked away because between the way he was chewing, which almost seemed like he was being gross on purpose, and the way his eyes were just kind of closed down, I was getting a really bad vibe from him. What project did you get? I asked. He shrugged, pulled out a little scrap of paper from his jeans pocket, and flicked it across the table to me. Everyone in the grade got assigned an Egyptian artifact to work on for the Egyptian Museum Day, which was in December. The teachers wrote all the assignments down on tiny scraps of paper, which they put into a fishbowl, and then all of us kids took turns picking the papers out of the fishbowl in the assembly. So I unfolded Augie's little slip of paper. Oh, cool, I said, maybe a little overexcited because I was trying to get him psyched up. You got the step pyramid of Saqqara. I know, he said. I got the god of the afterlife. The one with the dog head is actually a jackal head, I corrected him. Hey, you want to start working on our projects together after school? You could come over to my house. He put his sandwich down and leaned back in his chair. I can't even describe the look he was giving me. You know, Summer, he said, you don't have to do this. What are you talking about? You don't have to be friends with me. I know Mr. Tushman talked to you. I have no idea what you're talking about. You don't have to pretend is all I'm saying. I know Mr. Tushman talked to some kids before school started and told them they had to be friends with me. He did not talk to me, August. Yeah, he did. No, he did not. Yeah, he did. No, he didn't. I swear on my life. I put my hands up in the air so you could see I wasn't crossing my fingers. He immediately looked down at my feet, so I shook off my Uggs so he could see my toes weren't crossed. You're wearing tights, he said accusingly. You can see my toes are flat, I yelled. Okay, you don't have to scream. I don't like being accused of things, okay? Okay, I'm sorry. You should be. He really didn't talk to you? Augie, okay, I'm really sorry. I would have stayed mad at him longer, but then he told me about something bad that had happened to him on Halloween, and I couldn't stay mad at him anymore. Basically, he heard Jack bad mouthing him and saying really horrible things behind his back. It kind of explained his attitude, and now I knew why he'd been out sick. Promise you won't tell anyone, he said. I won't, I nodded. Promise you won't ever be mean like that to me again. Promise, he said, and we pinky swore. Warning, this kid is rated R. That's what the next chapter is. I had warned Mom about Augie's face. I had described what he looked like. I did this because I know she's not always so good at faking her feelings, and August was coming over for the first time today. I even sent her a text at work to remind her about it. But I could tell from the expression on her face when she came home after work that I hadn't prepared her enough. She was shocked when she came through the door and saw his face for the first time. Hi, Mom, this is Augie. Can he stay for dinner? I asked quickly. It took a second for my question to even register. Hi, Augie, she said. Of course, sweetheart, if it's okay with Augie's mother. While Augie called his mother on his cell phone, I whispered to Mom, stop making that weird-outed face. She had that look, like when she's watching the news and some horrific event had happened. She nodded quickly, like she hadn't realized she was making a face. It was really nice and normal to Augie afterward. After a while, Augie and I got tired of working on our projects, and we went to hang out in the living room. Augie was looking at the pictures on the mantle, and he saw a picture of me and Daddy. Is that your dad? He said. Yeah. He looked at the picture again. Are your parents divorced? I've never seen him at drop-off or anything. Oh, no, I said. He was a platoon sergeant. He died a few years ago. Whoa, I didn't know that. Yeah, I nodded, handing him a picture of my dad in his uniform. Wow, look at all those medals. Yeah, he was pretty awesome. Wow, Summer, I'm sorry. Yeah, it sucks. I really miss him a lot. Yeah, wow. He nodded, handing me back the picture. Have you ever known anyone who died? I asked. Just my grandmother, and I don't even really remember her. That's too bad. Augie nodded. You ever wonder what happens to people when they die? I asked. He shrugged. Not really. I mean, I guess they go to heaven. That's where my grands went. I think about it a lot, I said. I think when people die, their souls go to heaven, but just for a little while. Like that's where they see their old friends and stuff and kind of catch up on old times. But then I actually think the souls start thinking about their lives on earth, like if they were good or bad or whatever, and then they get born again as brand new babies in the world. Why would they want to do that? Because then they get another chance to get it right, I answered. Their souls get a chance to have a do-over. He thought about what I was saying and then nodded. Kind of like when you get a makeup test, he said, right? But they don't come back looking the same, he said. I mean, they look completely different when they come back, right? Oh yeah, I answered. Your soul stays the same, but everything else is different. I like that, he said, nodding a lot. I really like that, Summer. That means in my next life, I won't be stuck with this face. He pointed to his face when he said that and batted his eyes, which made me laugh. I guess not, I shrugged. Hey, I might even be handsome, he said, smiling. That would be so awesome, wouldn't it? I could come back and be this good-looking dude and be super buff and super tall. I laughed again. He was such a good sport about himself. That's one of the things I like most about Augie. Hey, Augie, can I ask you a question? Yeah, he said, like he knew exactly what I wanted to ask. I hesitated. I've been wanting to ask him this for a while, but I've always lost the guts to ask. What? He said. You want to know what's wrong with my face? Yeah, I guess, if it's okay for me to ask. He shrugged. I was so relieved that he didn't seem mad or sad. Yeah, it's no big deal, he said casually. The main thing I have is this thing called mandibulofacial dysostosis, which I probably pronounced that wrong, which took me forever to learn how to pronounce, by the way. Hey, that makes me feel better. But I also have this other syndrome thing that I can't even pronounce. And these things kind of just morph together into one big super thing. which is so rare that they don't even have a name for it. I mean, I don't want to brag or anything, but I'm actually considered something of a medical wonder, you know? He smiled. That was a joke, he said. You can laugh. I smiled and shook my head. You're so funny, Augie, I said. Yes, I am, he said proudly. I am cool beans. Hey, so this made me think. So the title is Wonder, and he says, but I'm actually considered something of a medical wonder, you know. He is a wonder. This is a perfect title for this book. I love it. Okay, the Egyptian tomb is our next chapter. Over the next month, August and I hung out a lot after school, either at his house or my house. August's parents even invited Mom and me over for dinner a couple times. I overheard them talking about fixing Mom up on a blind date with August's Uncle Ben. On the day of the Egyptian Museum exhibit, we were all really excited and kind of giddy. It had snowed the day before. Not as much as it had snowed over the Thanksgiving break, but still, snow is snow. The gym was turned into a giant museum with everyone's Egyptian artifact displayed on a table with a little caption card explaining what the thing was. Most of the artifacts were really great, but I have to say, I really think mine and August's were the best. My sculpture looked pretty real, and I had even used real gold paint on it. And August had made a step pyramid out of sugar cubes. It was 2 feet high and 2 feet long. And he had spray painted the cubes with this kind of fake sand paint or something. It looked so awesome. We all dressed up in Egyptian costumes. Some of the kids were Indiana Jones type archaeologists. Some of them dressed up like pharaohs. August and I dressed up like mummies. Our faces were covered except for 2 little holes for the eyes and 1 little hole for the mouth. When the parents showed up, they all lined up in the hallway in front of the gym. Then we were told we could go get our parents, and each kid got to take his or her parent and a flashlight tour through the dark gym. August and I took our moms around together. We stopped at each exhibit, explaining what it was, talking in whispers, answering questions. Since it was dark, we used our flashlights to illuminate the artifacts while we were talking. Sometimes, for dramatic effect, we would hold the flashlights under our chins while we were explaining something in detail. It was so much fun, hearing all these whispers in the dark, seeing all the lights zigzagging around the dark room. At one point, I went over to get a drink at the water fountain. I had to take the mummy wrap off my face. Hey, Summer, said Jack, who came over to talk with me. He was dressed like the man from The Mummy. Cool costume. Thanks. Is the other mummy August? Yeah. Hey, do you know why August is mad at me? Uh-huh, I nodded. Can you tell me? No. He nodded. He seemed bummed. I told him I wouldn't tell you, I explained. It's so weird, he said. I have no idea why he's mad at me at all. All of a sudden, none. Can't you at least give me a hint? I looked over at where August was across the room talking to our moms. I wasn't about to break my solid oath that I wouldn't tell anyone about what he overheard at Halloween, but I felt bad for Jack. Bleeding scream, I whispered in his ear, and then walked away. Ooh, I can't wait to find out what happens next. We're going to stop here for today, and then we're going to go into part 4, Jack. Ooh, so I have a feeling the way that this has been set up so far is the author keeps telling the story from first person narrative, and she keeps changing the character that we get to hear the story from their point of view. So it sounds like we're going to get to hear now from Jack's point of view what's happened so far. So I'm really excited to continue reading. I hope Jack figures out what had happened and that he can make amends with Augie. In other words, make it right. All right, Lions, thanks for joining me. I can't wait to pick up with this story tomorrow. Have a great day.